Continuing the trend of trying to visit some different types of habitats, today's walk is at Clover Hill Park in Redington Township. It's one of our smaller outer areas, only about 130 acres. But again, it offers a bit of agricultural grassland habitat, offers a chance to walk in a corner of the county without having to travel to some of our more larger meadow location type parks. So we'll take a walk down the trail here and see what we can find. Okay, the one little downside to Clover Hill is limited parking. Pavement wise, we only really have enough spots for two. You could sneak in a few other cars before the cable by parking off of the pavement along the little field that's just here by the parking lot. But one of its perks, as you can see, is the trail here at Clover Hill is actually an old driveway and paved, and it's one of the places I would recommend if there was someone who was first learning maybe how to ride a bicycle, because you could offer a smooth ride away from traffic at this location. So there are pros and cons to a visit with Clover Hill. Okay, an invasive species that's just beginning to crop up here at Clover Hill is pokeweed. It gets these massive seed heads at the top of the stem that you can see that are white here. In time, I believe they turn a purplish red. But this is a very tall invasive plant. It has the potential of growing about 6 feet. And when established, it can sort of dominate the area. Some wildlife do use it, that's why it's spreading. But if you can get on it soon enough, it is a crop or a plant that you can get control of. It's not overly aggressive. Okay, growing along the side of one of the agricultural fields is another technically a wildflower, but again, another invasive. This does get a long yellow head. People may know it, but this is mullein. But again, it's another sign of a human disturbed area where this plant will live on the fringe. This one here is already about 6 feet tall. It is again used by many insects and some birds for pollen and nectar aspects. But again, it is technically another invasive plant in Hunterdon County. Okay, before you get to the cable, there is a little service road trail that you can take that does go across the one little woodlot that is in Clover Hill before it gets over to the other large agricultural field that dominates the property. You might pick up some local wildlife, some bird species calling from the woodlots, but unless you walk it, you're never going to know. So it's worth a little distraction because it is the only little spur off of the roadway here at Clover Hill. Okay, this is the crop field on the far end of the little service road spur. As you can see, there's a power line cut through it. If you can catch the light out on the far side of the cornfield, that's the little 7-acre neighboring property of Redington Township's park. There's some soccer fields and a playground over there. But again, it just shows that most of the land here at Clover Hill has been put into an agricultural use and cooperative agreement with the farmer. But the little spur does offer a little distraction because of the little woodlot that it walks adjacent or runs adjacent to. So it's worth a little bit of exploration. You might catch something unique wildlife. I did spook up a couple of rabbits while I walked over here, but you might find some other things in the area. Okay, in front of you, as you can tell, is actually a little land snail. You can see the head with the antenna and the eyes on top of it ahead. Like a slug, it only has 1 foot, so it's using that foot by pushing forward and then dragging the body in the direction that it's moving. It probably needs to eventually get out of here because the sun's coming up and starting to get warm. But again, this is a gastropod, and it will eat leaf matter and help create new soil in the area. Okay. Hopefully in the distance you can see there's some movement. There's actually a young fox out about halfway across the field looking at me right now. Fox live on the edge of human habitation. An area like this, they would probably find themselves in competition with the coyote. But there is a development along the edge here that it's probably existing in its perimeter. It actually almost looks like it might have a kill out there and is trying to feed off of it, because it's not really moving around and not paying any attention that I'm in the area. But that is a red fox out on the edge of the field. Okay, on one of the telephone poles along the roadway, you will find a Kestrel box. It has been active in years past. I do not know about this year, but because it's such an open habitat, it is prime territory for American kestrels, the smallest falcon in North America and an active predator. Goes after small rodents and some insects, but it's always something you want to keep an eye out for here and any of the other more open areas that you may be visiting. Kestrels are a species of concern. Their nesting boxes are preyed on and raided by European starlings. So the state's been doing a monitoring program and trying to use volunteers to keep the boxes active for the kestrels and flushing the starlings when they do try to take the boxes. But again, when you're here, check the tree lines, check the skies for a bird of prey with pointed wings, and that will be the American kestrel. About 3/4 of the way out the road, you'll come to another brushy area that hasn't grown up into a woodlot yet. And that's because this area is the old parking lot of the former use of this property. Prior to county acquisition, this was actually an old Merc estate with a complex out here in the center. And the roadway that you've been would be walking is actually the driveway for that old complex. The parking lot has kept a wooded habitat from establishing, but the brushy area is a place that acts as like an island of vegetation for various wildlife to take refuge into. Upon walking up to it, there was a group of grackles calling crazy here. A few other birds have been in the area, but you can also find some other mammal wildlife, maybe some reptiles in the area if you did a little bit of searching. Okay, one of the things I have been able to get on is everyone's favorite Monarch Butterfly. It's out here in that island area trying to use the milkweed in the area. Monarchs are dependent on milkweed for laying their eggs and the caterpillars. Can't tell which gender this one is because it keeps hopping on me, and I'm gonna probably lose it on this one. But again, they are a migratory insect, taking 3 generations to complete the round trip journey. But again, if you have milkweed in the area, you have the potential and probably do have monarchs in the area. When you get out to the end of the road, you'll find our yellow diamonds on one side of the telephone pole. You'll find a white diamond on the other side. That's because all the land north of this road over to Higginsville Road is actually the state's South Branch Wildlife Management Area. That land, along with Clover Hill, is just shy of about 600 acres of undeveloped habitat that acts as a sanctuary for many of our local wildlife and flora in amongst the fields that are used for agriculture. But because it's an open habitat and acting as a sanctuary for the wildlife, casual observers can come here to try to observe the wildlife moving through the area. But again, it is a sanctuary location for the wildlife because all the area around this property, or these 2 properties, is developed and it concentrates the wildlife to this location, acting sort of like an island of sanctuary for the animals. If you just heard that call, that screech, that's the call of a red-tailed hawk calling from one of the nearby tree lines. Just remember though that the state side is a WMA, so it is technically huntable for any open season, whereas the county side is only open for deer season. Up on top of the telephone pole is a common bird of open areas. It's the northern mockingbird. When it flies, there are 2 white wing squares, one in each wing that sort of give it away. Its call is also known for doing 3 to 4 notes, then finally changing to a new tone and doing 3-4 of those.